Let's get it, folks. Welcome back to the Fish Life podcast, the lowest budget, actually live bass fishing podcast there is. We're about to have a good time tonight talking to Jacob Wheeler, getting Lake Fork tournament tips and breakdown right now. Listen to Whiskey Myers sing about it. Yep. Sure have. I absolutely have been known as that. Thank you for writing the opening line of that song about me, Cody Cannon. I appreciate that. I'll take you fishing sometime in payment for that. Man, I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful Sunday night. We just watched the Lake Fork event unfold for Major League Fishing. Great event. Phenomenal event. Had a blast watching that, man. We're going to get Jacob Wheeler on the phone tonight. We're going to talk to him, get all the inside intel, breakdown, tournament tips, all that good. All that good. You know that good? We're going to get that good. Get that brown in your cup and hold it up, folks. One more time. Good. That's what tonight's podcast should be called, the good, because that's what it's going to be. Listen, anytime you get to talk to the number one angler on planet Earth, and he's going to break it down for you and show you, talk about what he saw. And I know Jake well enough to know this. He's going to give us the goods, man. He ain't going to hold nothing back. That's how he does things. And I really appreciate that. Do me a favor as you guys join us tonight. Y'all know the drill, man. Drop me a comment so we know who we're talking to. Be sure to ask questions later. I'll try to get some of those questions answered by Jacob. I've got plenty of my own questions I'm going to ask him. I'll try to get him to answer you guys' questions as well. Also, if you enjoy these videos, or even if you don't, you just want to help a poor fella out, man, hit that thumbs up. We sure would appreciate that. And please share this thing. Folks, it's 2022. Sharing is caring. That means if you care at all about anybody, just share for them. And for me particularly, I need all the help I can get. So please share this post. I sure would appreciate it. Like I said, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Jacob Wheeler's coming up. We're going to break down the Lake Fork event, talk about just Lake Fork fishing in general, what we can expect going forward with Lake Fork fishing. Chris, I see the question right there. Chris could not make it tonight. He got tied up with a work deal. He's got a big week at work ahead of him. And unfortunately, Chris couldn't be with us tonight. I know he's hating that because he would have loved to talk to Jacob along with me. Before we get into Jacob Wheeler, I want to feature something real quick, guys. This is the 6 Cents Super Sack. Now, this is a subscription service that you can go get. Here's the deal. You get a discount value already by buying this in the subscription sack. They're going to give you baits that are just phenomenal for that time of year once a month. When you go purchase this, you can use the code YLFG Super 6. Use that code. You'll get $10 off your first bag. You're already getting a discount. Then you get another $10 off. It literally makes these lures about 50% off after that, almost 50% off, right at it, like 49% off. After you get that extra $10 off using the code YLFG Super 6. Now, let me show you the baits that came. I just got this one in. This is this month's, February's. Let me show you the baits. So I haven't really looked at them in depth. I've just kind of glanced at them. But as you can see, a lot of crankbaits in this one. Guess what we're going to be doing all week at Lake Fork? A lot of cranking. Like, it's that time of year to start throwing a crankbait. Cold water, the Curve 55 is a phenomenal deal. Hey, guess what, guys? They bite a black and blue jig in cold water. They'll bite a black and blue crankbait. Check that dude out there. And there's a little short, listen, that kind of looks like them jigs we be throwing on them stumps color-wise. And that little Curve 55 will get down there and do its thing, man. That's a great bait. Also, when it gets cold and you get post-frontal, sometimes you got to downsize your bait. We all know that. There's a crawl-colored Crush Mini 25X that came in this month's box. And the old standard, and really the type of bait that we saw win the event at Lake Fork is a Crush 50X square bill. That's a 1.5 type of square bill. That's basically what we saw win this event at Lake Fork. So that's the standard you need to have. And I love this color. What is this color called? The OG. This color is called the OG. And I don't know that I've ever had this color, but that is about as perfect of a shad, greenback shad as I've ever seen. Now, this is a new color that I have not seen until now. This is the old lipless crankbait, the Snatch 70. Very good lipless crankbait. But this is a new color that I'm really excited about. I really am a big fan of this color. Sorry, you guys are getting to see my kitchen in the reflection. Y'all see that? Don't be looking at them dirty dishes over there, y'all. Don't be looking at them dirty dishes. Y'all can see that, though. That color right there is called Coontail Crawl, and that is one of the prettiest crawl color lipless crankbaits I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. Let's dig in a little bit more, see what else we got in the box. Swim jig. Love a swim jig. Chatterbait, skirted baits of all kinds work this time of year. Also, divine swim bait heads. Y'all been seeing what's going on these Divine swim bait heads and swim baits. And then to match up with that swim jig. And also, I love this color as a chatterbait trailer on Bee Height Delight. But we got a little package of Divine swim baits. We know what happens with Divine swim baits and Divine swim bait heads this time of year. Have y'all seen the 13 and 14 and 15 pound? A lot of them getting caught on that right there, guys. Right there. So that's, you can get this quality of tackle that is perfect for this time of year and get it at almost 50% on the first one if you use that code YLFG Super 6 to order the Super 6 subscription set from 6 Cents Fishing. You can find that at 6centsfishing.com. Anything else you want to order there while you're there, you can punch in the code Your Lake Fork Guide and get a 10% discount on those orders as well. Now, I've got to wait a little bit. Jacob has had a tight schedule. You know, Jacob's doing, first of all, I want to thank Jacob with him before we even get him on here. He has had such a tight schedule coming from Lake Fork, going to Smith Lake, and they had a little deal for Aaron Martins today, and he had tournament meetings. Like, he's cramming us in, like he's going out of his way to do this podcast for us, and I cannot thank him enough, man. It means a lot that he would take the time to do that. He would. Let me send a text to Jacob real quick. Okay, so got the text into Jacob, let him know we'll be calling him. He told me to call him here in about 5 or 6 minutes, so we'll be doing that. Man, what a cool event it was, and I know we did all the recaps, but just one more time, dude. What an honor it is for me personally to have guys of that caliber actually mention us on the live coverage. 10 years, 12, 13, almost 13 years ago now, I moved here. About 12 and a half years ago, I moved here. Towards the second half of 2009. Immediately started fishing Lake Fork a ton, fell in love with the place, and got obsessed with everything Lake Fork. Skeeter, get out from under the table. You're moving chairs around. The old Skeeter bug's trying to get in the podcast here, folks. I apologize. But I fell in love with the lake as soon as I fished it, you know, right away when I moved here, and just got obsessed. I mean, having it as close as I did to me, I got really, really obsessed with the fishery itself. And I started in a plastic boat, and then I got into some older used boats and just kind of did what I could to get on the water every day that I could. Fished a lot with old Zach Watson, his old aluminum boat back in them days. Borrowed his aluminum boat back in them days. Used to run my buddy Tim Rhodes' Phoenix out there sometimes. Like, man, I was fortunate to have good friends that helped me get on the water, and fortunate enough to have the opportunity to live as close as I did, to fish the lake as often as I did. And I fell in absolute love with everything about this lake and the way the fishery is set up. And how, honestly, one of my favorite things about Lake Fork is how difficult the fish are to catch. They're very difficult to catch in this lake, and I love that. It makes it the truest test that you can have. It's absolutely the truest bass fishing test that I've ever seen to figure these fish out and catch them. I just love everything about it. And so having had that deep-seated passion for the lake, the fact that, you know, the brand that I've been able to be a part of building and establishing has become somewhat synonymous with Lake Fork is, you know, outside of my children, like the coolest thing that I've ever accomplished. It's the biggest accomplishment for me. That's what it means to me when Ryan Salzman mentions that he studied for the tournament by watching your Lake Fork Guide, and when Adrian Avina mentions it, it means that my name is somewhat synonymous with Lake Fork, or our brand is somewhat synonymous with Lake Fork. To be a part of building a brand that is like that with this lake is the biggest accomplishment of my life outside of my children. It's not a great monetary gain. I'm not a super rich dude making a ton of money, but I get to do what I love and have the respect of guys at the top level that I'm doing a good job at what I'm doing. It just means more to me than anything else that I've ever been able to accomplish. So sorry to get off on a little tangent. We're kind of filling some time here till we can get a hold of Wheeler. It's just been an awesome week. And you know, honestly, we got, you know, Mercer gave us some love when Bassmaster was here. And that was awesome too. And it just, so the last two events, it's been really cool and a big honor, and just, I'm gonna stop rambling about it. It means a lot. It means a ton to me, guys. Let's see some comments. Let's talk to some of you guys before we get Wheeler on here. Somebody's a Skeeter Bug fan. He loves old Skeeter. Everybody loves Skeeter Bug. She's a great dog. Big question for Wheeler is, do you think the time off hurt him or gave him a chance to study the conditions? We're going to get into that with Wheeler here in just a little bit. Tell you what, let's go ahead and try it. We're a minute or two early. Let's see if we can get him on the phone, see if he's ready right now. You guys are going to get to see the unfolding of true live production here. See if we can make this happen the right way.
Billy, son.
Mr. Wheeler, I'm glad I called you a couple minutes earlier. Are we good to go?
Yeah, we're good.
Good, because we're live. Whether we good or not, we live, baby. That's right. Dude, I can't thank you enough. I told all the viewers you have had a crazy schedule transitioning from Fort to Smith and had some stuff for Aaron in between. And, man, I can't thank you enough for squeezing us into your schedule, dude. It means a lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely, man. No problem at all, man. I always enjoy getting a chance to talk to you every once in a while. Last time we were at Fort, we got a chance to hop on. So,
yeah,
it's sort of a start of a tradition.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time you guys come to Fort, which is honestly going to be most years, probably, let's face it. So,
yeah, after that kind of fishing, no doubt.
I was talking about this the other day on kind of the post-game shows that I was doing after the last day. Like, I don't know, like, you may have a little bit more historical tournament knowledge than I do. I don't know there's ever been 5 double-digit bass caught in a single tour level event. Like, maybe Clear Lake back in the day or something, but I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe that or like a falcon. I remember the East-West fish-off maybe back in the day, if you remember, like all them guys catching those like mega bags in FLW.
Yeah.
But I don't know of. Yeah, I personally do not know of a. I know obviously no MLF event, but I don't know of any other tournament that I can think of on record.
I mean,
double digits.
Best case scenario, the most recent it happened was like 2008 Falcon, maybe. I mean, it's been years for sure. It's been 14, 15 years at least since we've seen 5 double-digit fish get caught in a single event. And you guys came here. I mean, dude, let's talk about this first. The weather change and water condition change that you guys experienced was about as extreme as anybody's ever seen in a single event. And part of that's because you guys are here for 6 days. That gives more opportunity for the weather to change. But there was literally in some areas of the lake a 20-degree water temperature swing to the cold direction, which is bad. Like, that's not good this time of year. So
That's not what you're looking for.
It's not. You love the first few days when it's warming. That's good. That's a good thing. And then when it, for me on Lake Fork in my history, when you have that 10 degrees in 2 days, 15 degrees over a few day water temperature drop this time of year in the pre-spawn, about ready to spawn deal, man, it's like almost like fishing the Dead Sea out there. Yet you guys are still able to go out there and catch these fish consistently day in and day out. And not that you were lights out catching them everywhere you went, but like there was some really big fish caught every single day of this event. How do y'all pull that? How do y'all manage to pull that off, bro?
Yeah, those guys, I mean, they figured it out. There's no doubt. I caught some good fish throughout the week, but and those guys are just so good at dialing it in. From like obviously watching some of the coverage later and seeing where like guys were up the pond and guys all over the lake. Really, I mean, even like Alan Jones, Junior and Alan Jones. Like, those fish, that water temperature drop, and I mean, those fish did not want to bite. I mean, those guys had to work for, and even my fish that I was catching, a lot of them using active target on timber, like those fish, they got off, 90% of those fish actually started getting to the bottom more and actually sucking down at the trees. So it actually made it where they weren't even susceptible to really being caught as easily. So I would say 80% of the bass started to suck down because it was so cold. The water temperature had dropped, the surface temp had dropped so much, I felt like those fish just sucked down to the bottom a little bit more and actually got more bottom related. So that was interesting to see how that really changed throughout the tournament. Obviously, these guys have seen a lot throughout their careers, so they see a lot of different conditions, but that was definitely a little bit crazy, especially going from the qualifying round and winning the qualifying rounds to going out there and fishing in it with water temperatures like 47, 48.
Right.
Oh, God dang, it's cold. So, yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the fish knew what was up. I didn't know if it was going to be – I didn't think it was going to affect it that much because a lot of the fish that I was fishing for were, obviously they were, setting up. They were just basically what I felt like was happening. A lot of those fish get out in the middle of the lake, they chase bait, they eat crappie, they do all that for a while, and then as it starts to trend and warm up, they start to push in, and then you're catching those fresh ones that are pulling up there. And so that so I was like, oh, these fish are already committed to the timber. dude, some of them suckers, they left. There wasn't a bass, that I could see on swimming around. So that was really interesting to see how the whole event really played out.
It moved them for sure. It's going to when you get that extreme of a condition. But yeah, I thought that you guys that were fishing, and you were fishing to me, from what I could gather, and I didn't know everywhere you were all the time, but I could kind of see the areas you were in. Sometime knowing the lake as well as I do, it seemed like you were fishing the most main lake out of just about anybody, and I thought that was going to be good for you because those fish tend to not change as drastically as some of the creek arm fish or fish that are further along in the pre-spawn phase, so to speak.
Yeah, in practice, it's sort of interesting to sort of give some of the viewers an understanding of what went down. First day of practice, we get there, and I launched down on the lower end, the back of a creek arm, and the water was 60 degrees in the back of the pocket, and I was like, holy smokes. And I got out to the main lake, and the water was 52, 51, and I was like, okay, interesting. Well, you went, every pocket you wanted to go into were back up creek arm, and you cranked that like OG Slim, or you cranked the crankbait around. Dude, it was just like thunk, like big, and thunk, big.
Yep, that's how it gets on them warming trends. It's crazy.
Big.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh. But I knew with the conditions we were going to have that obviously that was not going to be very long-lived. And especially the fish that were up there, like it was going to be good for the guys who knew that was coming for the Group B. And it was going to be even good for the guys, in Group A on day number 2. But I figured, with the post-frontal conditions that we were going to have on day number 1 of our day, flat calm, it just, I was like, I didn't feel like it was going to be the winning pattern, and obviously, I watch a lot of your stuff that you put out, and I always like to keep an eye on what's going on. And with that much talk about the Creek Channel thing, and you got, catching them doing that, I was like, I don't know if that'll last. I don't know. So I opted I'm going to scrap that.
Yeah.
But it ended up being the deal. It ended up, obviously, I think, I talked to Alvin Jones Jr., I talked to AJ, just talking about it, I was like, dang, that's cool, dude.
Yeah. It was the deal, and it's what Alton won on. But hold on, folks. For all of us out there watching us normal, we go out a couple times a week, guys, or whatever. Hey, don't expect to go out there and crank them creek channel areas and catch them like Alton did. Like, what he did was executed extremely well with a lot of patience. Yeah, a lot of patience. Went through those areas. And you heard him talking about during the live coverage. I know you didn't, but we did, about how thorough he was. He was fishing too fast. He would slow himself down. He was being very thorough. What he did is he took fish that didn't want to bite and made them bite. He figured out a way to make those fish bite. Now, and that's what happens. And you know this, Jacob. Those fish get back in those creek arms, and when you get that 60-degree number, they start getting on them flats, right, and getting shallow. And then you get shocked like we did, and they just kind of suck back to that first draining channel they can get to, and you just kind of hold tight, and they really don't bite. They're hard to catch. But Alton was
big suckers at fork. Them suckers do not like to bite us. They have to have optimal conditions to trigger those big suckers to bite.
Yeah, so Alton, man, all credit to him. That was an unbelievable performance, and he executed so well on those fish. As I watched the live coverage unfold on day 4, I was like, the thing that I liked about Alton, I was like, what he's doing, he's by himself. Like, there's nobody else doing what he's doing. His dad was trying to a little bit, but even Alton Sr. was running more main lake stuff on that day. Alton was the one that I saw on the final day that stuck to that deal, and he had it all to himself. And I'm like, oh, boy. Like he's doing different than everybody else. And you know how it is in tournament fish. Sometimes somebody doing something different, that's going to be what puts them over the top. One thing I do want to ask you, and you just mentioned that, I want you to go into this a little bit for me. Explain it, because I feel like I say it all the time, but I feel like people probably hear me as a fishing guide on Lake Fork say this, and they think I'm just trying to, lower the curve, lower the expectations for customers or something like that. But can you explain to me, as you travel across the country to all these phenomenal fisheries, how much tougher is it to catch a Lake Fork bass than it is to just about anywhere else?
Yeah, number one, Fork's an unbelievable place.
Absolutely.
It's top. It's in the top 5 that I fish day in and day out. There's times, obviously I have different places for different reasons, best smallmouth fisheries, best largemouth fisheries, best spotted bass fisheries, and everything else. But, it is such a unique fishery. Obviously the slot limit, I would have to say, is a huge part of that, of keeping those fish, so many 3 to 7, not eight, 9 pounders. I mean, stupid, and even double digits, as you've seen this week.
Right.
But there's no doubt with the bigger fish, with the pressure it gets, last time we were there, it was during the spawn, or the first start of the spawn, and a lot of those fish were at, a lot of boats on the water. I mean, that place gets a lot of pressure as well. And so it's very difficult to find something to yourself. I mean, I can remember, sort of on Chickamauga, it gets a lot of pressure too. And with that, pressured fish tend to not like to bite, especially because they're so well versed. They understand, hey, look, I got caught on that crankbait last week, or I know this, or I know that. Them suckers remember, especially those great big ones. And so I think that I think a lot of that, especially with the conditions, which you have to play the conditions when you're going for your, a lot of guys that are out here, having their bucket list trip built, booked on Fork. A dang giant cold front comes. It doesn't mean you're not going to catch them. Yeah. It just means that, look, you might only get a few bites a day, maybe 2 or 3. It's not a guarantee. I mean, and you got to you look at the guys who are towards the top. I mean, and they were no doubt dialed in, but I mean, even they're still working. And when you get a bite, sucker's freaking big. But most of the time, I mean, you are working for every single bite. It's not like going to Smith Lake or Spot Bass where you're getting 40, 50 a day. Now, the quality is way better than anywhere I've ever been, but you're going to work for every single one of them.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear you. I wanted them to hear you say that, because I always say that. I don't know how serious people take me being a guide. They may think my view's a little skewed, but they're hard to catch for sure.
Oh, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
So,
There's no doubt.
Next question is this, and this is probably going to be a little bit of a tough question for you, but I just want you to think about it and tell me your honest opinion on this.
Yeah. You
go through, and obviously when you have a chance to automatically qualify to the championship, you got to do it. That's the best way to go. You're getting in the top 10, and that's a pay difference, a big pay difference for you guys to get in that top 10. But in this event, with the way the conditions changed, did the extra day off and then another extra day because of a delay, do you feel like that hurt you and gave the guys that had fished the knockout round a little bit of an advantage over you because they were there during change after the condition changed?
I think this is what it was. I think yes, I do think, I don't know if it gave the guys an advantage. I think it gave a day off. It didn't really hurt me. The extra day, which was the right call with what they had forecasted, I think they were trying to, hey, look, guys, trying to make sure everything's good. The only thing we have to look at a lot of times is our safety, of course, but they're looking at boat officials, and a lot of these boat officials are, 55, 60, 70. That day I won, Steven was 78.
Yeah.
Okay, so retired, 78 years old. Somebody in that age, you're not going to put them out there freezing rain. I mean, we're going to try not to. So I understood where they were at on that side. Now, as far as the fishing went, I do think it did hurt me a little bit. Just because at the end of the day, when I already qualified, pretty much I caught them so good in that first period that I got where Ish and Kevin backed off, and I knew they would. I started looking at the weather forecast for the championship day, and I looked at areas that the wind was going to be protecting those areas pretty well, which allowed me to sort of move around and do my thing better in those zones. And the wind was exactly what it was supposed to be on that day, but the problem was the wind switched a little bit more from the north, and that affected the fish more than anything. I also think that being 3 days off, you're just not as much in tune as you were. Now, I definitely think it was enough to be one fish throughout the full day of competition. Yeah. I mean, I had the bites to win, no doubt, but I'm sure several other people did as well. I had one probably 5.5. Come up next to the boat, I needed 6 something, and then I had several fish that I lost probably 6 or 7 pounder that just got me in the trees, which I did not lose one all week until those 2 fish. Yep. And you have to have a flawless, championship round. It's not like it's a progression of 4 days where you can have a couple mess ups and you just had a great day, and you can't jack it up typically, especially when you're talking about a cold front that was so drastic as what we had, and then those bass are already tough to catch in optimal conditions. Then you add that on top of it, you're going to make. And I knew it. If I caught every bass that bit me that day, I figured from the beginning of the day, I said, look, I will probably win. If I don't, then I don't know if I can make it happen. And that's what it seemed like. And it took me a little while to make adjustments. I do think it probably affected I do think it might have cost me one fish or something like that, just because I'm not as sharp. At the end of the day, it was a long answer, but that's sort of.
At the end of the day, it cost you one, possibly 2 bites at most.
Possibly 2 bites, and I probably would have been a little bit more dialed in on.
Okay.
If I wouldn't have that time off.
So a negative effect, but not drastically. That was the one thing I was wondering about, because like I know from guiding, when you get on a guiding run and you got a bunch of days in a row, well, you get dialed in, and then if you take a few days off, you got to start over. Like you're not sharp anymore. You're not as sharp when you're not on the water every day. So I was wondering about that. I was very curious about that. Let's see what else. What else was I going to ask you? So I saw you, and so for those that don't know, I ran into Jacob on the water back in January, like right before off limits came into effect. And you were the last guy I saw out there, dude. You were spending daylight to dark days out there, and it wasn't pleasant most of those days. Like it was nasty, cold, and I gave you a lot of credit, man. That's to me, that's why you're as good as you are. It's the work. It's not that Jacob Wheeler's got the magic recipe or knows how to twitch a jerkbait different. It's the time. It's the time that you put in and the research. That being said, that time that you spent here in January when you were kind of pretty much the only guy you were competing against on that lake at that time, did that pay off? Did that time on the water then actually benefit you during this event? Or did it just kind of give you some general ideas and then you dialed in during the practice right before the event?
So yes, it definitely did. And there's this is the thing, sort of a motto I go by. I don't know who actually this is the quote that I always try to go off of. Like everybody, it goes like this. It's like the will to prepare to win is infinitely more important than the will to win. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to win when you get to the tournament or you get to the championship round, but the will to prepare to win is so much more important. And so that, to me, it did end up helping. It didn't necessarily help me with a specific spot, but it did help me understand maybe how those fish set up a little bit. And there was a few guys that pre-practice. I think I saw Mark Rose and Dakota Eber, which he didn't have his wrap boat. A lot of guys didn't have their wrap boats.
Okay.
There was a few, but it definitely, it definitely helped me understand how those fish position. Now, this is the thing. The problem is pre-practicing can be a double-edged sword as well. And people, and fishing, all right, for instance, even I'm at Smith Lake right now, and we're going to start practice for our tournament. Starts Wednesday. And it came up 9 feet since I came here for a couple days. And you just have to throw it out the window. And there's times that the problem is the pre-practicing, you can sometimes get on something and then put yourself in a position to where you're like, oh man, I'm going to try to make that happen. I'm catching them on a red crankbait. Oh, I'm going to try to force that. And then you practice like that and you try to force it and you keep on trying to find it. And then that was a month ago. So there's times that it's really difficult. You almost are better off trying to figure out the lake, learning the lake. The biggest thing that helped me was running around the lake, understanding and seeing what it had and how it's set up and what areas had cleaner water, dirtier water, XYZ. The water was 6 foot low. And the other thing that really helped me more than anything was I could not find a school of bass offshore when I was here before. And I really, really looked hard to try to find a big group of fish offshore in the white bass, the sand bass, and crappie or whatever. I tried to figure it out, and I could not figure out how to generate a lot of bites. I caught a couple here and there. So it really helped me eliminate more and helped me sort of confine, okay, this is probably the zone I'm going to spend my time in. We have 2 days of practice, and 1 day of practice it was blowing 20 from the west or 25, 30, the northwest, and switching around. So you're talking about a limited amount of practice. So I definitely would say it definitely did help. It just still you have to sort of look at the weather that week and the conditions and all of those things and try to make adjustments. You have to still make adjustments on the fly and have to fish the tournament like you didn't go there, but it helps you it helps me get a little bit of a better game plan typically.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me like it's something that you take pride in. And I think anybody so let's be real. Can we get a little deep, dog? Can we dig into the mind of Jacob Wheeler a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you want to be known as the greatest fisherman of all time when you're done?
Man, for me,
is that something that you think about?
People have brought that up to me. In my argument, somebody said something about Kevin, Rick. I'm like, dude, I'm not Kevin. I'm not Rick. I look at those guys as absolutely insanely, like they are the best of their era. And I said, what is Jacob Wheeler's goal? They asked me, and I said, my goal is to be the best fisherman of my own era. Like during my time when I was in my prime, who I was fishing against. That's my goal. I don't think it's like a LeBron. Like, I'm gonna say I'm looking like LeBron and Michael. Okay, Michael Jordan. If you look at Rick Clunn was the dang man. Okay,
yeah.
He was freaking unbelievable. But you could make an argument. Well, Kevin's better than Rick. Well, Rick's better than Kevin because he didn't have this. And then, well, Kevin had side scan. Well, Rick did this. And so there's all different. We have different technologies. We're in our peaks differently. They're all different things. So, to be the best of all time, I always say that with like sports. I'm like, I don't look at individual like athletes like in basketball or football. I'm like, that guy's the best all time. Now, we'll say Tom Brady is the best quarterback. It's pretty hard to argue not.
He's made it real tough. He's made it real tough.
Real hard. But other than that, I look at it like, my goal is just to be the best I possibly can be, and that's sort of how I look at it typically.
And I know that's a hard question because
it is.
Nobody wants to come out and be like, yeah, I want to be the greatest. Like, I want to be the very best of my, like even saying I want to be the best of my generation. Like, that's kind of a hard thing to say because you don't want to slight anybody because there's so many guys that are so good. There is Kevin still fishing. Like, you still fish against him. Yeah. He has done so much. And, there is Jordan Lee and there is Ott Defoe and these guys that have been number one in the world at a time. And they're still in their prime. And hell, Jordan's young. And, so you don't want to slight any of them by saying, yes, I want to be the best. But the reality is when you guys are at the highest level competing, like, you're not the only one that wants to be the best. They do too. No,
you're out here for only one reason to be as good as you could possibly be.
Yes. So that being said, it seems like you take a ton of pride in the work ethic. And I think anybody that reaches your level and is gotten the number one ranking in the world, they have to. You have to have that work ethic to get there. And right before you came to Lake Fork, I saw a post. My man's up there at Grand Lake putting in the extra time in nasty cold weather. And I'm like, this dude just doesn't stop, bro. How long, I know you take pride in it, that's obvious, but how long can you keep up this rate of work? Because as you get older, family life, you got children now, like how long is Jacob Wheeler going to be able to keep grinding like this? I mean, how do you, let me rephrase that. Have you found a happy medium in management with the family life and the work life? Or is it something that you think you might have to work on managing better as the kids get older?
Yeah, I think, and that's part of it as well. I have Olivia, my little girl, she's 3, and then Hudson, he's just 4 months old. And so that definitely, I can see, even more so, it's even tougher and tougher to leave home at 3 years old with Olivia, where she's at. Now, Hudson doesn't know what's going on quite yet, but that time will come. Now, I think that, and the part of the reason why I only fish the BPTs, like I could fish the pro circuit and the BPTs, is because I want to give my all to what I'm fishing, whatever it is. And so it's like, so realistically, I love to fish. Like I enjoy fishing. I think it keeps you sharp and it helps you. Heck, I fish Thursday nighters back at the house on Chickamauga when I can, because those tournaments help me stay sharp in the middle of the season. And my wife is obviously the number one thing that I couldn't do without my wife. She understands what's going on. She gets it. She knows at the end of the day, she sees the work that I put in and how that works, for our family and paying our bills, and she understands it. So if I didn't have a wife that understood it, then it would be even harder. And now she has 2 kids to deal with, obviously, so it makes it even more difficult.
How important is that? Like, that's so important,
that's
right?
Number one. You could not do
without
that.
her mentality on it being in that place, dude, you're done, right? Like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, you cannot. If you're arguing and going back and forth and bickering, and you're done. You can't focus. If your family life is not good, especially being married and having 2 kids. If I had to worry about that all the time, I couldn't do what I was doing on the water. I leave home knowing like, hey, look, I'm doing this for them, and I gotta focus and do the best I possibly can. And she understands that, and so I see people sometimes that And that's a tough one, man. It's a tough one trying to fish professionally and then having the family at home. I can't even imagine. And then having, someone that might not understand it, because there's not very few women that will actually understand that what's going on. I mean, it's a lot easier when all the checks are coming in and everything's happening all great, but still, it's not when it comes down to time. Now, I do think eventually I could back it off a little bit, but I really just, I didn't fish pre-practice the first one. I really pick and choose. I don't pre-practice all of them.
Okay.
I'll give you for instance. So, like I didn't pre-practice fork the last time we were there because it was a spawn event. Typically it's pretty easy to say, hey, back some pockets, that, but if it's a tournament that I feel like I can go and I can find one place or figure out something a little bit or cut down on a zone of the lake that's going to benefit me to potentially have a chance to win, then I'm going to make a point to make sure I do that. And so that's sort of like, even like Cayuga and some of those other places, I probably won't go to those places at all. But like, for instance, like last year at St. Clair, we had the St. Clair tournament, and I was I think third or fourth in points after Chickamauga, or after St. Lawrence River, after, winning that tournament. And I told my wife, Alicia, I said, look, I got to go up there for a considerable amount of time and figure this place out. And I know it's going to be completely different, but it's going to help me figure them out. St. Clair is huge. It's a giant bowl. There's no irregularities. It's just grass and perch grass and open holes, and like you're not going to find a spot. It's going to change. But I need to go. So I went up there and I ended up, figuring it out in that for the July. And I spent like 7 days. Well, I didn't go back and win the tournament, but I won Angler of the Year because of that trip.
Exactly.
And that was my goal, like, all along. Like, I had to, like, if I'm in a position where I'm going to, like, my goal, like, I've been, fortunate to be in the top 10 in points in the last, 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, and I've never won the Angler of the Year. I got there, and I'm like, gosh, man, I keep getting so close, but it's like one fish loss, or, you just make one bad decision. It's like, you could always end the year like a one fish that you lost throughout the year that cost you enough points. It seemed to be, for me anyway, that made a difference. So I'm like, forget it. And in that knockout round up there on St. Clair, I ran to a place that I had found in the Detroit River, and I caught 2 bass that solidified me in the championship round and solidified the thing.
There you go.
So that sometimes, that was, so long story short, that is, I will definitely still spend the time when it really matters, but I have to pick and choose.
It's a case-by-case deal. It's a case-by-case deal for you, yeah.
Like, I didn't go to pre-practice Caney and Darbone, any of those. I just went up, rolled up, and fished.
Gotcha.
So before, because we were going to stay on the same body of water, if I figured something out there and I understood it a little bit better than the rest of the field, that gave me the better chance to win.
I want to.
I look at that being more valuable than something else.
Absolutely. Does it matter? So when a body of water is bigger, does that lend itself more to need pre-practice versus Darbone, Caney, or smaller fisheries?
It's just the time of year again.
Gotcha.
Time of
Okay.
year
Okay.
where you're, when they're more set like typical pre-spawn winter patterns, and they have a chance of them still being in the same locations, that's when I start to, it makes sense to go.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? Like when they're going to be potentially in the same location, or summertime, you go in July on a lake, and they're probably going to still be sitting on some similar stuff. Or help me figure out what they get on and then how they transition. Those are the things that I look at.
Gotcha.
Like, obviously, it made no sense for me to go pre-practice on the St. Lawrence River because at the end of the day, it was probably going to be a spawn tournament or a shallow sight fishing, looking around. So it made no sense there.
Gotcha.
But I spent a substantial amount of time on Champlain last year in between events, like before I went to St. Lawrence, looking for irregularities in places that I did not know about on that body of water because, hey, look, there's a good chance these fish are up there on the bank now spawning, but they're going to be out here. I need to find stuff that they're going to set up on. So
it's more about the patterns that you think will be in effect for the actual event.
Absolutely.
And do you think you can get benefit from researching those patterns at that time during pre-practice? Gotcha.
100%.
Okay, I want to get back to the Angler of the Year topic, but before I do, we had a viewer question I think is interesting, and we've ventured into a little bit of off-the-water stuff, so why not ask this one? So Christopher in the chat asked, I've always wondered what Jacob does in his off time, not fishing involved. What? Give us the insight on who the Hot Wheels is, man. What are we doing when we're not fishing?
there. I'll tell you what I try to play around with a little bit. I'm not good at it at all. I've been playing around with golf. I do deer hunt quite a bit as well. This last year I did not get a chance to deer hunt very much. There's a lot of guys who fish professionally deer hunt as well. I get to go deer hunting a little bit in the fall. I enjoy going up there to Ohio. I've got a good friend of mine up there. We manage quite a bit of property, and we work together on some stuff, food plots, this, that, the other. So that's something that sort of takes my mind off of it. And then I try to play around with golfing. I'm not a big golfer by any means. I'm horrible.
Bro, you should have never told me. You should have never told me. You should have never told me you played golf.
I try. So my thing is, if I put my mind to it, I'll get good. I'm not going to say great, but I'll get good eventually. But my problem is like, I'm not quite there. So I'm working on it. I'm getting a set of clubs, I'm getting all this stuff together. Okay. So it's, I'm just working on just fun stuff. In the fall when fishing's tough, and truthfully, it's still fishing. One thing I love to do more than anything in the fall is go run my jet boat way up some like little creeks of the no man's land, because I just like getting away and not seeing a boat the whole day and just going somewhere like maybe no one's ever been and catching a spot or smallmouth or going somewhere way up a creek. We have a lot of mountain-fed creeks around where I live in Chattanooga. And so I'll just drop my dang jet boat in the dang creek and just go running around, bumping off the stumps. It just feels like you're a kid again. You know what I'm saying?
I think I saw a YouTube video of you doing something like that. Was that you that I saw?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm always fishing. I'm always fishing some little sneaky creek, and that's when the fishing is good. In the fall, sometimes on some of those places. So I try to do that as well. So those are the few things little hobbies I have when I'm not fishing.
So here's the deal. Everybody wants to fish with Jacob Wheeler. He's number one in the world. Everybody wants to fish with him. I don't. I mean, I would happily fish with you. Love to film some content with you sometime. That'd be great. But I now want to go play golf with Jacob Wheeler. So
you do not.
Next time, no, I do. I definitely want to. Listen, I got to sneak around and turn the camera on when you're not looking. Get some leverage over you, dog. You know what I mean? Get some embarrassing content.
Just don't film it. Golly.
I'm going to tell you, no, what we need to do next time y'all have this deal here on one of your off days, there's a golf course right there on Fort. We need to go hit them, dog.
Oh, we got to do that. See, I'm in on. See, something like that, I'm in on. You better believe that. But see, by the time next time, I might do a little bit better. So,
I'm not good.
I'll just step it up.
Like, I'm not good, bro. I'm not good at golf. We're gonna go out there and act stupid and look stupid and have a lot of fun. That's what we're gonna do.
I'm in on that for sure. I'm in on that one for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. Have all. Okay, so Angler of the Year. I want to get back to that. Your Angler of the Year title last year. We talked about it going into this, and I'm going to be honest with you about what I said. And I don't know if you saw the content or not. I know there's tons of content. You can't see everything that I do. So I don't know if you ever heard me say this or not. But we were talking last year as the season went on, and the debate was who's the best on earth? Is it Ott? Is it Jacob? Who's number one? As we're doing this stupid talking head about fishing stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. And my stance was, I feel like when I look at it, Jacob gets all these wins, and like you look at it, and the eye test says Jacob Wheeler's number one, but I can't call him number one because he's never won Angler of the Year. Like, you kind of got to have that if you're going to be the best, in my opinion. How important was that to you? Because you said earlier you want to be the best of your generation. How important was that to you to win that Angler of the Year?
Yeah, it was really, really important. And I think it was more so important the fact of the time and effort I put into it, the whole year, and everybody, all these anglers do. And obviously I was well deserving of Angler of the Year. He had an unbelievable season. Heck, he won 2 tournaments and killed it all season. But it came to the point, I think it just, when you get so close for so many years, and like I remember going back to like even a BASS Elite event, early series, where it was like Christie and Polnick. When Polnick won Angler of the Year, it was Christie, it was Polnick, Christie, then me, and I was like 30 points out. And I was 25 points out in the AY championship, and I'm like, gosh dang it, I remember this like 7-pounder I lost to Ross Barnett. So I can vividly remember all these times where you would have won if you just get this fish in the boat or something like that. So like, yes, it was 100% to me. I've won a decent. I've been fortunate to win a lot of tournaments, decent amount of tournaments. And so for me, it was definitely my largest achievement personally to date. Like, because the guys I'm fishing against here, day in and day out, obviously they're a tough group of dudes. And to ultimately come out on top, and being so close so many times, that's what meant the most to me. So it was the top achievement, and I agree. Like, I think you look at Rick Cluns and winning Angler of the Year, and Jordan Lee winning an Angler of the Year. I will win a couple, I'm sure, before it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5. You have to have wins, championships, Angler of the Years to be considered. I mean, you go look at Joe Montana, and you go look at so many great quarterbacks, and they don't have championships, and everybody looks at it as a championship. Like, hey, did you win the big game?
Yep.
Did you win the big game? And,
Yep.
and to me, like, in my mind, Angler of the Year is more important to me than a championship.
Yeah.
A championship, you could have 3 good days on the water, or you don't have 5 days that go well, and you win, or a 1 day, or so to me, Angler of the Year is more prestigious than I would take 5 Angler of the Years over 5 Red Crest or 5 Bassmasters Classics any day of the week.
There you go.
That's just me personally.
Well said. Yeah, that's always a debate. Which would guys rather have, the Classic or the Angler of the Year? I mean, well, it's been the Classic. Now the Red Crest is in there as well. But yeah, that's always been the debate. Do you want to win the Super Bowl, or do you want to win the Angler of the Year? And I think bass fishing is kind of unique in that most sports, it's the World Series, it's the NBA Finals, but there's a difference because those teams play each other and eliminate each other, so you beat the best to be the best. And in bass fishing, at the Classic or Red Crest, you're fishing against the top qualifiers from the previous year, so it is the Super Bowl. But at the same time, it's kind of the easiest tournament you guys fish to win. There's less people,
there's less competitors,
less days. Yep. I mean, it's kind of the easiest one to win. And what do you think?
There's no doubt. The championship events are consistently. I mean, I was fortunate to win the Fisherman Cup when I was young. One of my biggest.
How old were you? Say that. How old were you?
21.
21. Forrest Wood Cup. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I remember that. That was
21.
great.
Yeah, it was nuts. So I won $500,000 when I was 21 years old. Didn't know what that could do. I remember doing an interview, and they asked me what I was going to buy. Dude, I didn't grow up with a whole lot. And I told them, I said, I'm going to buy me a few pairs of Nikes. And they're like, I think you'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it was just, but yeah, so that, see, the thing is, I had one good day. I had one really big day. Now, I had 2 big bags or something in that tournament, I think 2 big bags each day, or the biggest bag of that day. And I fished, the cleanest then. But at the end of the day, I was still just the best guy for that week. When you're winning Angler of the Year, you're the best guy for that year.
Yes.
Under multiple circumstances, not, hey, look, I'm the best guy in this body of water. Hey, it's Chickamauga, I won the tournament. Look, I did all this stuff. We caught them. It was a great week for me. But it's smallmouth, it's largemouth, it's down, it's Florida strain, it's clear water, it's dirty water, it's pre-spawn, it's spawn, it's offshore. You have to, that's why I look at it so differently. I'm like, that to me, I'm not saying I will not be pumped out of this world to win Red Crest at Grand Lake later in March. But if I would win that, I'd be ecstatic. But still, to me, my number one goal every single season, the pinnacle of my goal is Angler of the Year.
That's your top goal. Yeah.
100%.
It's the truest testament to who is the best that year.
Hands down.
And so if you care about being the best.
There's no other argument for that. I'd argue to the day I was blue in the face. They'd be like, listen, you can say what you want, guys. But to me, that is the truest test to see who's fishing at the highest level at that point in time.
Guys, we've seen a couple, and I'm talking to the viewers now, we've seen a couple questions come into the chat. If you guys, it's a great time. If you guys want to drop some questions, we'll keep Jacob on just a little bit longer if he's okay with that. And we'll start answering some questions from the chats. I got a real simple one here, but probably not a very simple answer. What is Jacob's view on forward sonar from Mike Mason?
Man, forward-facing sonar is interesting because it's definitely. I've heard arguments on multiple different things. Obviously, I've embraced electronics going forward, and it still is niche right now. But we're still in the beginning stage, so we don't know how good it's going to be in 5 to 10 years. We don't know where electronics are going to be at. I like it and I don't like it. I like it because obviously to me, I'm be honest with you, I've learned more in 3 years about bass behavior than I've ever known in my entire life. I learned how many bass look at your stuff and never bite it.
That's right.
It's like,
That's right.
Never like, and so you've never been able to like actually pick up a worm. Like, all right, you cast in there and one falls down, looks at it, and like all these fish are falling, and you're like, oh man, that color's not right. And you pick up a different color, and boom, you start catching them. Like, oh wow, it actually did matter. Like they were looking at it and they didn't bite it. So there's things like that that to me are so awesome. Okay, that are great. And obviously, fishing at the highest level, I'm going to put anything that I can as far as electronics goes. If it's going to mapping, that's why I run Humminbird and Lowrance in the back for CMAP in Lake Master. That's why I run a couple three graphs up front. Because anything that I can get a little bit leg up on the competition, I'm going to do that just to ultimately. It's a huge deal when you're competing against so many talented anglers. The only thing I don't like about the whole graph thing is I don't want it to be where younger anglers, like high school anglers, look at it as like, oh, I can't compete now. And I have to have $10,000 worth of electronics in order to do so. And that's my only deal is like, cause I can still, like at the end of the day, like people ask me all the time, are you going to take 360 or you take live scope or active target? And I'm like, look, I can still make this work within my boat. Like if I had to, I could still buy an HDS 9 and put it in the back, one unit, and an HDS 9 and put it up front, and have active target, and I can make it work for the whole year for what I'm doing, day in and day out, no problem. And that's a reasonable amount of money when you're talking about a brand new boat or something like that. I think when you have 12-inch units all over the place, you look at the guys who are competing at the top that are doing so great. I don't want it to get to the point where that young kid, like, that was my age, when I was 12, 13 years old, looking at Kevin and Edwin and looking at these guys wreck them out offshore, side scanning XYZ. Like, I mean, I remember the first time I got a GPS, a GPS Lowrance unit. Like, and I was like, holy smokes, I can waypoint. Oh my gosh.
Dude, I had a HDS 5 Gen 1, bro, with sonar and a GPS map. I was in heaven.
I couldn't believe what I did. I was like, oh my gosh, So that's my. I think there's positives and negatives to technology. And the other thing is you have to realize is with the technology, the fish are going to get smarter. You look at an Alabama rig, they get tougher and tougher every year throwing a rig around and bass and stuff. It's like come up there and bite it. It's the same thing with forward-facing sonar. And this is the thing. You cannot, number one, you're not going to catch them all. Number two, you can't see them all. They hide so well. It's not like you're going to pan over there. I don't know how many bass this week I threw next to a stump at Lake Fork, or last week where I threw my jerk bait out there and all of a sudden there's one come out of the stump I had never seen in one day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? Oh my gosh. And there are like three of them come out of nowhere. And you're like, what?
Patrick told me the same thing, that he actually, Patrick's a great live sonar fishing, Patrick Walters. He told me the same thing. He said, man, I honestly use it more to see cover to throw at than I do specific fish at times, because you'll throw at the cover and then see the fish like you're talking about.
A lot of times they'll just appear. Bass are so good, and fish are so good at camouflaging themselves, which that's how they make their living. They gotta eat.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's interesting to that, and I think this is the thing too with, now especially on these really high pressured lakes, like when these fish get grouped up out offshore, I mean, it's like everybody knows where they go to on the offshore points and humps, this and that. It's hard to find a new sneaky school offshore. And our electronics are so good, we can see those. So those are all like found in a lot of our areas. Now you go to, now we can see individual fish with forward-facing sonar. And at the end of the day, it's not the end-all be-all. You can get your butt kicked by looking down at that graph. And I've done it myself, and I've had to learn. There's days you just have to learn to turn it off and completely ignore it, because you will waste more time. I'll give you for instance. Okay, I was at Smith Lake 2 years ago. I was just messing around. We're here right now. And I went down this bluff wall, and they're suspended, okay? And I was like, oh, okay, they're suspended on this bluff wall. Cool, I saw 2 or 3 of them, that's when the forward-facing sonar really shines. They're they're suspended out in the middle of the water column, but there's nothing else around where you can just pick them out like, oh, there's one bass, there's one bass, there's one bass. And I catch 3 of them on a jerk, or I catch 3 of them on a swim bait. I catch them. Well, I go back down that bluff, and I'm fishing, and I'm throwing that swim bait trying to find them again. And my buddy in the back's throwing a shaky. He catches 10 bass down the bluff on a shaky head that I never, ever saw. And I'm like, so that's a situation where there's times, again, they're tucked in closer to, a bluff wall. He might have been under a shelf. You could never see him. Boom, he caught 10 bass. And I'm over here so worried about the bass right here in no man's land that I'm completely ignoring the easy ones. I can just cast them back reeling. So there's times, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. I think electronics, technology, it's that way. And I'm not really worried about the fisheries or the fish necessarily. I'm worried more so, like I said, about the youth and making it to where everybody can still, like, I wouldn't care if they said, hey, look, you can only have X amount of inches of screen, you can only have a 150 on your boat, you can only have an 18-foot boat. Like, I wouldn't, like, that to me would be awesome, because the more people in this sport that we can have, the better off we are, and the more young kids are coming up that are excited in terms of bass fishing, high school and college. That the more people out here that we're more bass that we have. So I think that's my long answer. Everything's long.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Like I said, it was a really quick, easy question, but I knew the answer would be complex. One thing that you're referring to there, and I had a guy, and I think about this all the time dealing with live stuff, because as a fishing guide, it's almost even harder to get customers to see one on the screen and throw at it. And as far as keeping the bait on the screen and watching a fish eat it on the screen with guide customers, it's basically impossible in my opinion. It's just not
impossible.
It's not
about that too.
Not realistic. So I use it to locate fish, to locate cover, to watch their behavior at times. I've learned a ton from it, like you're talking about. But for me, I don't spend hardly any time at all doing what you guys just did, what you just did this week, which is looking at fish while you're fishing for them. I don't do that very much. But somebody told me, a guide buddy of mine told me a long time ago, I started getting into some big swim bait stuff. And I started kind of getting it figured out a little bit and started getting those bites. And those big swim bait bites, man, it's like nothing else. Like they jerk the rod out of your hand. I mean, it's every time you lean on one, the rod tip about touches your elbow because it's a giant. And it's addicting. There's a lot of people, and there's a whole category of people that just bass fish with big swim baits for fun. Like they're not tournament fishing. They don't care about anything other than throwing the biggest swim bait and catching the biggest bass they can. And they get addicted to that. And there's forums and all that based around it. So as I got into this, I was getting into it. And I was starting to get kind of a little bit, good at it. And he was the best big swim bait guy I knew. And he's also a fishing guy in Lake Fork. And he looked at me and he said, listen, dog, don't forget how to fish. Like that big swim bait can make you forget how to fish. I feel the exact same way about live sonar.
I 100% agree with you.
Don't forget how to fish, folks. That live sonar is cool and it's fun and it can be very addicting to do. But you're going to, like Jacob said, you're going to get your butt kicked. So don't forget how to fish.
That is not the end all be all. It's a tool that you can use.
Right.
For instance, like last year, I was fortunate to win 3 tournaments. I won 1 sight fishing, 1 skipping boat docks, and one on completely on active target. It's a tool day in and day out to what's going on and like what's happening. You have to learn, like those grass are great and all. You got to turn them off at some point in time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Somebody named Carl is wanting to say what's up. I don't know if you know him or he just wants a shout out, but Carl has to tell Jacob he said what's up.
That's what's up. Heck yeah, Carl.
Carl's in the house. And then AJ, of course, I don't know if you know this, but dude, like this year Lake Fork guide crew around here, like it's a little rough. Like we can give each other a hard time around here. Like there's not many punches pulled, and somebody's even kind of giving you the needle in the comments. Said Wheeler don't know what he's talking about. Just kidding, ha ha.
I don't know. Heck, I'm trying to learn how to catch a bass over here at Dang Smith Lake. I've got to get to the thing. I'm literally rigging up spinner baits and dang crankbait stuff as we talk. Literally rig it up. Out here in the boat looking at this thing, looking at my box and stuff that I have in here and like, what they gonna bite this week?
Well, for a lot of our view, Smith Mountain Lakes can be great, cool fishery, totally different type of fishery where you guys are going next at Smith. I think for a lot of our viewers in this region, the next event that they're going to be real excited about, obviously the Red Crest at Grand Lake is going to be great, but locally we got Lake Palestine coming up in April, and somebody mentioned that. Are you guys ready for Palestine? What do you think? Y'all were supposed to fish it last year. Snowmageddon happened. Now we're going to Palestine. What are we thinking?
Man, I'm looking forward to Palestine. I think I went down there, looked around a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to probably hit it right in the middle of the spawn.
Yes.
Or like a little bit later. either right in the middle of spawn, probably most of it the south end will probably have more spawning than the north end, because those fish probably spawn first, like typical lakes. And so you're gonna have some spawn, post-spawn fish up the way. You're gonna have some spawn fish rolling up. I mean, I think it could be unbelievable. Obviously, there's giant ones. You know, you hear Lake Fork all the time, and you know, obviously, that sucker has them, but Palestine has them too.
Yes.
And I think that we could hit it just absolutely perfect. I'm looking forward to actually picking up a frog in that one and firing him around a couple times and hoping and holding on when one bites it, because I hope he doesn't break my stuff off, because I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And we're going out there. I mean, that should be, I mean, shoot. The first round, 25 grand, second round for big fish. Big fish on the second round, $50,000 in championship round. If you win the round, if you win the championship, you get 100 grand, and if you catch big bass, the championship round is $100,000. So I like those kind of tournaments. Last year, I think I got big bass in the knockout round on 150 grand. I said, I like this.
Yeah.
Make sure we get in every one of these.
Yeah, let's do that again, right? Like, let's just do that some more.
Yeah, okay.
It's never bad. It's never bad to go bass fishing and win 50 grand. Like, that's never a bad thing.
Especially when you're sight fishing, is even better. Like, when I passed that fish, I saw it on the bed, and she was off the bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a dang $50,000 bass.
There you go.
And just sit there for an hour and know, like, if you catch this bass, it's $50,000. You're like, that's a lot of stress, man. That's a lot of dang pressure.
Absolutely, it is. Sure, it is. Of course, it is. So, and I don't want to say anything about what's going to happen at Lake Palestine or anything about what you just said about a frog, because you guys got the no information rules. So
Absolutely.
There's been some discussion of that. Let's just clear, because I don't know if I've ever heard any of you guys actually clear this up for the people that are viewing. If you run into Jacob Wheeler on Lake Fork, or you run into the Bassmaster guys, they basically have the same rules over there. If you run into any of these pro tour guys on a lake or in an area, and you know a lake they're going to, do not talk to them about the fishing on that lake.
Please.
Tell me what the rule is and when it comes into effect. Like, how far out is it in effect? Tell me how the rule works.
Yeah, so as soon as we actually, for us, so I think for the Bassmaster, it's as soon as the schedule's announced.
Yep.
For us, it's as soon as we know, like, so say there's a tournament going to Chickamauga next year, and I know the Chamber of Commerce or whatever. As soon as I know that information, I am off limits from any fishing or any information on that body of water. So as soon as I personally know that, hey, we're going here, that lake right there, if I have a conversation with somebody and they're like, hey, man, I caught them on Chickamauga last week in the middle of the summertime on a, whatever. I caught them on a name floating fly, whatever, something crazy.
Hey, man, go check out Sneaky Snake Hole. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, I got to stop them at that point. Even if it's not applicable for what's going to go on, that's just the rule. And that's the way, I mean, that's the way, because you got to think, for the years of bass fishing, term bass fishing, when I started, it was, you could talk to anybody you wanted to, and it was sort of a network aspect to it. It's like, so you had a whole bunch of guys, like a lot of the professional anglers for years, you'd get information for all the way up until, all the way up throughout it. Like, I'm sure, like, back in the day, I don't even know what the rules were like back in, like, Rick Lunn's day.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was, like, wide open all the way through or what it was. And then it came to where it was, like, 14-day off limits. And then it was, like, 30-day off limits. Now it's where there's no information basically the last 5 years. And it just keeps it, to be honest with you, what it did more than anything is it made everybody have to trust their instinct way more than just like, oh yeah, a buddy of mine told me I catch him off this dock or whatever. The problem is with that is when you're having a tough time, which I'm sure somebody is out there has done the same thing. When you're having a tough time on a body of water, and Billy tells you, hey man, this point right here is awesome. And you keep running around the lake and you don't get any bites, you keep going back to that point because at the end of the day, and that might not be the deal.
Right.
You have to make the adjustment on your own. It's like hunting. You gotta hunt for you gotta figure it out. You gotta dial it in. You gotta do it yourself. And it just makes you a better fisherman. So I think that was a really cool rule that ended up happening. And yeah, if you see me out on the water, I absolutely would love to say hi. But please don't talk about all
right.
that. Hey, man, I'm catching them on a dang red rattle trap on the inside grass line or whatever, that's the kind of stuff that, we definitely try to shy away from that.
Yeah, like I ran into you in January, you were there, and I drove up to you, and dude, you got in your boat, started to take off, and I know you didn't want me to say anything, but luckily it was me, and I was aware of the rule, and so I just walked up, said hi, just good to see you, because I knew the deal. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware. Don't talk to these guys about fishing on your home lake if they're coming there, if they're coming to that body of water, you cannot. They love talking fishing. Obviously, we're doing it all night, but they want to talk to you about fishing, but they cannot talk to you about fishing on bodies of water where they're competing, that they're aware they're going to compete on, even if it's a year out, like Jacob just said. So, and there was all kinds of crazy rumors back in the day, bro. Like I've heard, and I don't know, probably most likely not true, but like I used to hear the rumor about like Strike King had a team of dudes that used to pre-fish for Kevin and like all kinds. Like I'm sure you've heard more than I have being in your world, but it was insane some of the stuff. And so if there's rumors that crazy, yeah, that's probably not going on. Maybe it is, maybe not. Who knows? But I'll tell you what is going on. There's some information sharing going on if you got that crazy of rumors flying around.
Yeah, I know it's nuts. The rumors that were going on back in the day still do. It just comes to a point, and people get they get to where I don't know where half the stuff comes from.
Right.
It's hilarious. I laugh at it a lot of times. Like, what did you say? Somebody said what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
It's interesting where the sport's going. I think that obviously every year we're learning more, and it's cool to see where we're going. But yeah, I mean, like you said, definitely, I would love to talk to you. I'll talk bass fishing. If we're not going to your body of water, you can talk to me about whatever you want. I'd love to talk about bass fishing. That's what I love to do, day in and day out. I mean, if I wasn't fishing professionally, I'd be at every boat show and talking bass fishing to everybody else, same exact way. So. That's what I love to do, and that's what I love to talk about. Trust me. So don't take it as I'm trying to cut you off or being a jerk by any means. Trust me, that's not the case. That's not my intent by any means.
One more question, and we'll wrap this thing up and get out of here. Just to clarify further on that. So, and this is just from a fan's perspective. So,
yeah.
What can the anglers talk to each other about? So, what can Jacob and Adrian and MDJ, DC? What are you guys allowed to tell each other during an event, during practice, all that?
Yeah. So there's basically there's two bases. Like for us on the BPT, it's pretty simple. We're not allowed to talk about specific locations. So I can't say, hey, Adrian, Mark, you guys, I'm catching them on this point. There's a school of bass here. There's 20 bass. You need to go throw a DT10 on this point right here. You'll catch them every cast. I can't do that. I can say, hey, I'm catching them. I have found a few fish on, schooled up on points. I can say mid-lake, like main lake, or say like, in creeks or whatever.
Right.
Secondary points, but it cannot be specific. And that's really, I'll tell you, that's a really cool rule as well, because on, like for us, it's like we love talking bass fishing. That's what we do, obviously.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you find a winning spot, I'm not going to tell anybody, like, hey, man, here's my winning spot. Go catch all my bass.
Yeah, you're competing against me, but here you go. Go beat me.
It's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. But what it basically does is it makes it where, like, you can't, like, I can't be like, hey, I remember back in the day, like, in FLW, I used to be like, hey, man, like, hey, man, like, you catching them? Yeah, I'm catching them out here on this place, and X, Y, Z. Oh, man, I caught some over there, too, and this and that. And it just makes it to where the lake ends up fishing smaller when you do that. Like, the whole field talks. And then those lakes fish smaller because everybody's in this portion of, they're all out here. And there's 10 guys that, I'm catching them on boat docks or whatever. I'm catching them on doing this. And it just tends to go that way. And the one thing it does prevent, like, I know in the Elite Series, and it was that way on FLW. I don't know if it's still on the Big Five side or on the Big Five side or not. But it's basically, you could tell a specific locations. You can share waypoints. You can share locations. You can do all.
Yeah, there's guys on bass that are sharing waypoints, like, to this day.
Yeah, so I think that's the purest form of professional bass fishing, is to cut it down to specific locations. You're like, look, I love going out there and figuring it out, and that's part of it. You always want to talk to your buddies, but there is to be the purest deal. Like, you can still get beat. You can't get beaten right now in the BBT by like me saying, hey, man, you need to go fish this dock. That's obviously against the rules, and no one's going to put themselves in that position to do something like that. Or you need to fish this, fish this tree, or you got to fish this bridge, or whatever it is. So I think that's really cool, especially when guys get kicked out or like get knocked out. they can't. And at that point in time, you can't see anything. So
Right.
Say Dustin gets, got knocked out in the knockout round, just barely missed it, caught a 10-pounder that day. When he came back home, he could not tell me or say, hey, yeah, dude, I caught him doing this or caught him. He, at that point in time, is basically just like, he's a non-competitor. So he can't talk about the lake. He can't talk about, what he caught him on, X, Y, Z. So that's sort of just how it works overall.
Yeah, and I know that. So there's been some controversial things with that over there because that's always been the rule, even on bass and everything else. Is once you're eliminated, you can't share info. It's just like a normal person. You're a non-competitor, like you said. And I specifically remember one story when Ott won the Classic in Knoxville, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Like there was a discussion about, I think it was Jeff Creed, I don't remember who it was, but somebody was at the weigh-in tank and was about to get was about to get eliminated, but had found something that day and was like, hey, Ott, might want to go run this. And then he goes out and runs it on championship day and ends up winning and caught some fish off that spot. That's just a rumor I heard. But
no, that was definitely, it was he said about it. Yeah, and that's what I said. I ended up getting second that one. So those are the things but that was completely within the rules. And listen,
I forgot you got second in that, dude. I didn't mean to bring up any sore subjects. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did. So, but that's part of that was within the rules. That point,
it was.
I'm not going to say, hey, but that was like for instance, that was a for instance right there. It was like, hey, look, if during the BBT rules, you couldn't do that, right?
Yes.
And that's all it really is. So,
and I think that's good. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Like I think guys that are competing against each other ought to be able to talk to each other at the dock at night in the camp or whatever. But the fact that dude just gave him a spot when he knew he was about to get eliminated, like there was something like that. That wasn't within the spirit of the rule, as they would say in other sports, right? Like they kind of
absolutely right.
Kind of circumvented the gray area there, and I didn't like that. And I think most people would agree with that. But just wanted to clarify for everybody, because there's always talk about the no. There's been some rumblings about it. People talk about it. They ask me, and I'm not 100% clear on it, so now I am. So thank you for that. And most importantly, dude, thank you. I know your schedule, and I cannot thank you enough again for taking the time to discuss everything you discussed with us tonight and just talk fishing with us when you're so busy, brother.
No problem, dude. I'm going to rig up a few more rods. I'm going to wish me luck over here, Smith Lake.
Absolutely. We'll be pulling for you. We'll be pulling for you, man. We appreciate it so much. Listen, everybody out there that's in the chat right now, hey, watch for Jacob Wheeler. Someday he's going to get tired of fishing. He might retire. Then he'll probably be a golf pro. You can go get a golf lesson.
Yeah, I don't know that golf. I don't know the golf pro. But hey, don't hold your breath, y'all.
Yeah, that's right. All right, dude. Holler at me next time you're down in town. We'll get together. Thank you, brother.
Sounds good. How we going?
All right, later, Jacob. Super, super awesome of him. Like I said, for him to take that time, that's a big deal, man. I know what that guy's going through, and he's trying to be the best in the world, as you heard him say, which obviously been pretty obvious. He's been doing that for a long time. But for him to take that time when he needs to be dialed in on Smith and doing his thing, they got a tight schedule right now with everything they got going on. And he probably misses his family, obviously, and wants to talk to them. And so for him to take an hour out of his evening, I can't thank him enough. Jacob Wheeler is a great, great guy. It's one thing. My favorite part about bass fishing is the people that are in it. All these people that I've met over the years in it. Like I said, there's very, very few that I've ever been able to meet and walk away from and go, man, I really didn't like that guy. Like I really didn't like that guy very much. Like they all are just really good dudes, man. I've become really good friends with some of them on Bassmaster. I've become somewhat friends with some of these guys on MLF, and man, they're just great, great people. Every one of them that I meet on both sides of that ball. So all that rivalry and MLF bass stuff, forget all of that. At the end of the day, it's people that are the very best at the sport that we all love. If you're on this channel, and it's one of the best parts about it is it's easy to pull for them because they're good people on both sides of that aisle. I do wish that we could stop the rivalry. Whatever the head button is, the scheduling on top of each other, I wish they would kind of cooperate. Is that realistic to think that's going to happen in the near future? No. There's a lot of hurt feelings between those two organizations, I believe. I think that's fair to say. I don't think we'll see them work together, but I would love to see us get to a point where Major League Fishing, Bassmaster can work together, not schedule on top of each other, let the entire bass fishing world watch every event, quit button heads. It shouldn't be that way. This is not that big of an industry, and there's no reason for those two guys, those two organizations to be doing, not getting along, so to speak. I mean, they're not hurting each other by both existing. It's not like if MLF fails, it's good for bass. It's not. It's bad for bass fishing as a whole. They're both helping grow the sport. They're both helping bring new eyeballs to the sport. They need to get along. So I hope we get there someday. Don't know how I went straight to that right after talking to Jacob Wheeler, because that was freaking awesome. Thank Jacob Wheeler one more time. Thank each and every one of you guys for watching, as you always do, man. Chris, we missed you tonight. The Cobra's not here to close it out. I don't even know what to say, so we'll just say this. We appreciate you watching as always, and we'll see you next time right here on your Lake.